Hi, I'm Chris with the Mobile App Challenge, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about a couple things. First, the Phase 2 deliverables that you're going to be required to provide in order to be judged for Phase 3, and then we're going to talk a little bit about a preview of what you can expect in Phase 3 if you make it through to the next round. The first thing that you're going to need to provide us is wireframes. At this point, you probably already know what wireframes are. They're basically a visual representation of your app. We are going to be using a variety of tools to get to the wireframes, as you can see on the screen. But really, we want something that is well-crafted, that shows all of the various screens users are going to need to go through in order to understand what your app is about. The one thing that I want to make sure that you guys understand here is don't spare any detail. So if there are screens that users have to have in order to know how to use the app, like, for example, a registration screen or a login or a confirmation page, make sure in the deliverable that you provide us that all of that stuff is outlined. You don't want to leave anything to chance, because these are going to be going to judges that may not necessarily have had any interaction with you, so they need to be able to look at your wireframes and understand exactly what it is that your app does. The next thing that's going to be required of you is a 2 to 5 minute video. This video is basically going to explain your app in great detail. It does not have to be fancy. It can be narrated PowerPoint, or it can be a polished scripted video. You can put it up on YouTube, you can record it with a phone, you can record it with a camera. You can do a screencast. The most important thing is that your video is clear and concise, and it's not any more than 5 minutes. So as I said, it should thoroughly describe your app and its value to the user. You will have defined who your users are at this point, so you want to make sure in your video you're talking about why this is valuable to them. And as I said, don't make it more than 5 minutes long. If it's more than 5 minutes, we're not going to watch it. The third thing that you're going to need is a sustainability document. So this is a document that is available on the website, and basically what it talks about is how you intend for your app to be carried on into the future. So we'll be asking questions like, who's ultimately going to own the application? So for example, if your app is a wayfinding app for the hospital, you're probably not going to own that app. You're going to need to find someone who's willing to take ownership of the app. Do they know that they need to take ownership of it? Are they on board with the idea of taking ownership? You're going to want to think about those things now so that you can answer these questions effectively. What are the dependencies of your app? Does your app rely on data? Can you get access to that data? Do you know how to get access to that data? Have you asked the appropriate people for permission? Are you sure the data is going to be around in a year, 2 years? All that stuff needs to be thought about. How often does the app need to be updated? You want to think about, are the things that my app displays, do they change over time? Who's going to update that stuff? How's it going to happen? Is it going to cost money? If it costs money, how do you intend to pay for that? And then the final set of the deliverables is a one-page description of your app. So again, like the video, it needs to thoroughly describe your app. You should not reiterate all of the functionality from the wireframes in this description. It needs to be a clear, concise description of your app and what it does. It needs to outline, again, the value of your app to your audience. A lot of this information is going to be in your video, but you want this to be in a really clear format. You want to tell us why anybody cares about your app. And finally, it needs to be one page only. So don't get wordy. We're going to stop reading after a page. You need to make sure that it's clear and concise, and that someone who has not had any interaction with you can look at this document and understand just exactly what's happening with this application. So those are the deliverables that are going to be required in Phase 2. If you make it from Phase 2 to Phase 3, there are a few things that we want you to know about. So the first thing, build a team if you can. Phase 3 gets pretty complicated. It is pretty time-consuming. If you don't have a team of people, you're going to be required to do everything on your own. So make sure that if you can assemble some folks, for example, if you can assemble some design folks, if you can assemble some people who have some sort of technical knowledge, it's great to get them on your team so that you guys can divide and conquer. An MVP is what you're going to be building. It's important for you guys to know that you're not building a production-ready app. An MVP is not ready to go into iTunes. So when you walk out of Phase 3, you're not going to submit this thing to Apple and be selling apps on the App Store, or be selling apps through Google Play when you're finished. If you want to learn more about what an MVP is, you can go to this Wikipedia page. I've got the link here. It gives you a pretty good description. But basically, what you're doing is you're building something that has the minimum set of functionality that proves the point to people to get them interested in your app. So in Phase 3, we have some expectations that you guys need to be aware of. One, you will meet once a week in person with your developer team and a project manager. So you're going to have a couple of developers working with you, building the app. There will also be someone project managing, probably someone that you've met at some point throughout Phase 2. You have to be available, which is why going back to building a team if you can is important. It's going to be much easier for you to make these meetings once a week if you've got more than one person to rely on. You're going to be responsible for all written content and all images used in the app, so going back to building a team, if you can find somebody with design skills, it's great. If you can find somebody that knows something about business analysis or knows something about process flows, all of that's going to be really important. If you can't, don't worry about it. We'll help walk you through, but you should be thinking about the various things that we're going to require of you that you'll learn about through Phase 2, and you need to be trying to find folks to help you meet those needs. You need to be available to test iterations of your app. So we're going to be building your app over the course of Phase 3 with your help as the product owner. You need to be available to test them. We are not going to be making assumptions that the things that we're building meet your expectations. We're actually going to have you test it. So you've got to be around, you've got to be accessible. You're also going to need to secure the devices we're developing for. So if we're developing for iOS, you have to have an iOS device. You can't rely on somebody else and then say, I wasn't able to find a device, I couldn't test. You need to be able to get that same thing with an Android device if that's what we settle on for your app. And then finally, you need to be available during the entire afternoon of May 29th during the New Venture Challenge Finals. That's when the Mobile App Challenge Finals happen. The requirement of you is that you're there, you pitch your app to the judges, you're available to answer questions, and then there's the Innovation Showcase afterwards that we want you around so that people can ask questions, and that's also where we'll announce the winner. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have questions, you know where to reach us, and we're looking forward to getting your deliverables from Phase 2 and seeing people in Phase 3.